What is going on, everyone? Anthony Drew Gary here, host of the How To Show, where we talk about optimizing life, money, and happiness one how to at a time. The cool thing about being a YouTuber is that I get to interview folks and share their stories. And Paul is an example of this. He's no exception. I've known Paul for about 13 years now. We met in college in architecture school, and Paul has done what I think a lot of people aspire to do on a bunch of different levels. But Paul has started his own architecture firm. And while that probably sounds really scary, I want to spend some time with Paul breaking it down, basically step by step, how he got from really working in a firm to going out on his own, because I think that there's some things that we can unpack there and make it valuable to you if this is something that you're interested in, if you're working in some sort of industry and have aspirations to go off on your own within that sort of world. And so with that, Paul, welcome to the How To Show.
Thanks, Anthony. Great to be here, man. Really excited.
Fantastic. And so, if you wouldn't mind, give me a little bit of your background, at least to the point that you got to the state that you're in, and how we got to where we are now.
Yeah. So like you said, we met at Ball State, did my undergrad there. So where did we go? 2008 to 2012. Um, Surprisingly graduated, which which was a shock to some. Spent a year down in Louisville where we actually did another internship together. Then did a master's degree at Ball State, got to travel the world tour. Any Ball State alums are going to be listening. It was a phenomenal experience. Decided to finish my master's at Ball State, worked at a little firm in Indianapolis called 110 Studio. And then in 2015, man, we're getting out of this, recession. It felt like if you had a heartbeat and you can move a mouse and open up AutoCAD or Revit, you got a job, you got a job offer. And so it was this time to expand the wings and see where it could take us. And it was cool. I actually did well in my master's. I worked hard and I tried to hone a craft and understand what architecture was like and what it was going to be like for me. And had 10 offers and 10 interviews. So it was kind of cool. So I people do say I still have a big ego, which is probably semi-correct. I try to be a little bit more humble now because I've been really humbled the past 5 or 6 years. But I had a huge ego then when you get 10 interviews and 10 offers and it's all across the country. But the last one was OPN Architects in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I've never been to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Most people probably in Indiana haven't. The only probably cool thing about in Iowa at that moment was the Field of Dreams, maybe the Hawkeyes, and that's really about it. so so
Right.
I
So you get out to Iowa, you start working in the professional world, and at some point along the way, obviously you're learning things, you're honing your skills, you're finding out what's important to you. But at some point in that process, you get this itch, maybe we'll describe it as, to achieve something more, or to do things a different way. What started to fuel this sort of thought? Because right now I didn't properly introduce you. You are the owner and the kingpin at Form Function Studio, which is an independent architecture firm. You are no longer employed by anybody else.
yeah
You are the guy. And so how do we get from working for a different firm into to where you are now?
yeah I It's a great question. So the entrepreneurial spirit's always been in me. My dad's a landscape contractor, has owned his own firm company for 40 something years. Um, there's a big values based proposition that happens when you're at a firm, right? When you're collecting a paycheck, your moral compass does matter to a point, right? So until you control the entire moral compass and what you're going to do every day, and to be honest, man, OPN's a wonderful firm. I will never speak a bad word about them, but there were some things that have to happen at a 120 person firm when you're a big machine and you have this portfolio on a website, and then you have to take on projects that don't necessarily meet that portfolio. Was one thing that kind of hit me hard, but I understand that there's a margin that has to be hit and there's service that needs to be, to clients. So that's not a bad thing. It just didn't sit well with me. And then there's a design aspect for it. So working on a project, and most architects care about how it's designed on the site, right? Solar, natural daylighting, passive gains, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm working on this project and the deal falls through on this particular site. So this next site comes up and we rotate the building 90 degrees. And I was like fuming. I couldn't understand, like, why are we doing this? We talked this entire game and all this practice and process and methods and systems to understand this building in one direction, and to us rotate at 90 degrees is literally probably the worst thing you could do for this building.
Okay, so clarify that for me. Did the actual piece of land change to a different piece of land somewhere else? Is that part of this game?
Correct.
Got it.
So the land moved,
Yep.
right? So the land they were going to buy moved to a different piece of land. And that's when I finally understood the business of architecture, right?
Yep.
There's a values thing that we want to have. There's this good in the community, the built environment, and then I have to pay the bills.
Yep.
And it hit me hard of like, I don't want to be a part of this, but in reality, I do understand it, right? And I respect that decision of, we could lose this project completely, or we can do it this way and hope to salvage something.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, because you're talking about a situation where your company had embedded hours into this project, probably at least in the hundreds, maybe in the thousands. And all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under you. You've got to figure out how to go make it work over there now. And so I totally get it. And I think that you described that well, the design aspect of architecture versus the business aspect of architecture, and how do the two marry together. And so it sounds to me like that was something that you were passionate about, to figure out how to marry them a little better.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's this really amazing opportunity that architecture has right now. So when I was at 110, I got a bonus of $600 for Christmas. And I thought that was amazing. Like, what an amazing gift. And we won awards left and right. And it was a phenomenal experience. And then when I get to OPN, and by year 4, I'm getting a $10,000 bonus check. That's a massive difference. Massive. And they just knew how to run a business really, really well, but at what sacrifice?
Right.
And so that's where it became tough, really tough. So in my head, I always knew, when I interviewed at OPN, they actually asked me, in 5 to 7 years, where do you see yourself? And I'm sitting in the room of the 5 partners of the Cedar Rapids office. They're up to 4 offices now. Again, phenomenal firm. Can't speak enough great things about them. I said, I'm going to be a partner here. And I said it at 25 years old. I had no idea what Cedar Rapids was about. I said, I'm going to be a partner either here or somewhere else, because my calling is to lead a firm. That's where my strength and skills can be. And so when I was 29, I met with the president then. He actually retired a couple months ago. Great guy. And I had a coffee and I said, I'm ready. I'm ready to be on this partner track. And he's, Paul, when I was a part of this thing 35 years ago, when I joined this firm, we were 10 people. And if there was someone like you then, we would have easily had that conversation. We have 120 people to feed. We have 10 partners. This is going to be a lot tougher conversation, and there's going to be a lot more grooming. And Anthony, you know me, man, I don't really take no for an answer very well. And I'm more of I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to figure out how to do it later type of guy, good and very bad. And so I said, well, I got to fuel the fire, man. I got an itch that I need to scratch. And the fall of 2018, I met with a developer. I'm going to keep the developer's name secret, because there's a good story behind this developer, because we are not working together anymore.
No, it's like an episode of Law and Order.
Exactly. We're just gonna call him Josh and Josh. So Josh and Josh Development Company. I interviewed we were at this panel discussion, and Josh and Josh's president or co-president, you know, tall, boisterous, very confident woman, and you don't see that a lot in our line of work. And so we're doing this panel discussion with college students and going through the design process and talking about design. And afterwards, she's like, "Are you looking for a job?" And I'm like, "Maybe." So long story short, we have this really great conversation. They look at investing into form function. They say they want to be a partner with me. They want to put me in one of their office spaces. We can help grow the firm. I would be the design and architecture arm of their development company. They do a lot of historical renovation work. They were good at what they did. And man, I was all in, right? You just sold this bill of goods. So gets to December of 2018, we're kind of working through the details. And then my grandma passes away, New Year's Eve, just, passes away. I get a call from my mom. I buy a plane ticket at like 11:30 p.m. I'm flying to Phoenix at 6 a.m. the next day on New Year's Day, spend 2 weeks there. And the driving factor, man, was I'm getting pie with my grandpa, who had just recently, passed away a year and a half ago, 2 years ago almost. And I asked him, what, like, it's always that cliche thing, like, "Grandpa, like, give me something that I can, bite off right now in a life." And we're talking about, starting the firm. And he's like, "What's the worst that happens? What's the worst thing that could ever happen right now?" I'm like, "I don't know, man. I fail completely, and I gotta move out to Arizona or Chicago, back in with my parents." He's like, "And then you get on your feet and start working again." And it was just this like snap realization where it's like, all right, what is the worst that can happen? I have no family in Iowa. I got really no connections. So might as well try, right?
Yeah, I've heard it said with other entrepreneurs along this exact same lines, is that, if you go out there and you try it and you fail, the worst thing that happens is that you go and you find yourself a job, which is right where you started. And so
Absolutely.
there's absolutely no shame in trying it. And every once in a while, good things come out of it. And so it sounds to me like you cut bait from the firm that you were working at by having an opportunity to go and work with a developer and basically bringing your first client to the table as the offering to start a firm. Is that where we're at there?
Yeah. So actually, it actually worked out a pretty sweet deal, man. So there's two ways to start a firm, right? You have a client, or you took a client from the firm that you were working with, or you received a client and then you were grooming them, or you met them through networking provided by the firm you were at, right? So you're semi moonlighting, which is fine, right? I don't condone it at my firm because I want people to work on our stuff, but I get it, right? I played the game. And we can talk about Giannis and all that soon. But I had a client, so they actually put me on retainer to work on all their projects, and I could continue to pursue other projects outside of Josh and Josh development. So I had a salary. I was actually technically like a W-2 employee to them, but I was still running my thing. I had insurance under my name. I had my firm, Form Function Studio, still as an LLC, sole proprietor. They invested in hardware, equipment, software, all that kind of good stuff. And so that was, man, I mean, one of the things that we want to talk about was like, is it bootstraps or you're taking on debt? I didn't take on any debt at that moment, which was super plus, right?
Yeah, definitely. You get to get your billables going and start to get some dollars coming into the
Absolutely.
business, and that definitely starts out. And so you at some point you have a separation from Josh and Josh development. What's next on the table? How are you getting new clients? Especially talk to me a little bit about how you're building business development in an area where you're not from there, you don't know many people there, and you're basically starting from scratch as a little guy in a pretty big city in Iowa.
Yeah. So there's two things, and one I'm not going to get too preachy on, but I found my faith again in Iowa, and it took me a long time to get to the man where I actually am proud of being. But it was a whole lot of prayer, man. I'm able to, and was very fortunate to join a business group called C12. So It's a Christian executive C-suite member only leadership group that's across the country. There's 12 or 1,300 members across the country. And it's C-suite members that range from CEOs to $100 million companies to CEOs of less than $1 million companies like myself, right? In terms of revenue. And so it's just a group of men and women that meet once a month, and we have a mentor, talk about business stuff. So I joined in February of 2019, the same month I started Form Function. And so I was immediately open to how to run a business, because that's something that is not taught in architecture. What does AR and AP look like? And what are those healthy KPIs? How to actually build a company where it's an attractive place to work? How do you deal with conflict resolution? How do you start using marketing dollars? What does margin look like? Overhead, ministry, all this stuff, man. So that's one. So C12 was amazing, and those connections connected me. So we're a big ag and manufacturing state. I was starting to able to make connections to different clients, and that was awesome. And then the other big driver of projects, I coach volleyball, and I still coach travel volleyball. I'm driving to St. Louis tomorrow after a project interview at 6:00. So I'm going to get there at midnight. And I coached high school volleyball at the Catholic school here in town. And it was a cool opportunity. I love coaching volleyball because of the service that you can provide to those young women and build their confidence up and allow them to break the glass ceiling and be a bright light in a world where young males, they don't have a bright light for them typically. And so to be able to be that older brother sometimes that they didn't want is pretty cool. But their parents, man, they were connected, and they saw something in me that I probably didn't see in myself. And I was very fortunate to have conversations with these parents and develop relationships and friendships, and them taking chance on me of saying, hey, we could hire the firm that's established, right? And not know them, and they'd probably do a great job, and they'd probably honestly be cheaper because they know what they're doing and they have a set of tools and systems and processes. Or we could hire you because we like you and we believe in you and we want to see you start. And a lot of people took a chance on that, man.
We could hire you because we like you. If you don't hear anything else that Paul's saying the rest of this this interview, hear that.
Yeah.
People do business with people that they like, and that's really important. So go on. It sounds to me like that's being a staple in your community was a way to open doors for you, and I think that's fantastic, because I know you well enough to know that you would have coached volleyball had that not happened at all. And so this is correct. Basically the principle of abundance, that you got something because you gave it, and you would have gave it anyway.
Yeah. And again, man, I think God's just really drawn me into this idea of impact, right? So before we started this whole thing, I asked you, I'm like, how much does an architect make, right? At a development firm or at a normal firm? And that's not something I've thought about in a long time, right? I care about my bills paid. I really, really do. And I care about margin. I care about my quality of life. And I have a very high quality of life. But the past 2 years have made a lot of people in this world recognize that time is finite, and I want to be a part of something that's probably bigger than me, that has an impact. And so something that I've been really lucky to be a part of with these clients hiring us, it's been for that like generational home that they're never going to move out of. So how do you design for that? Or how do you design for the grandkids, man? That's so exciting to talk about with these clients of ours, is welcoming in that, grandbaby. Or how do you welcome in your kids back home after Christmas because they don't have a permanent bedroom anymore, right? And how do you get them to feel like family again? Or it's for, on social media, we've posted some pictures of the T-shirt factory, right? So this apparel company that's outgrew their space at 12,000 square feet, and they bought an old Gander Mountain that's like 38,000, so they could, 3x or 4x their production and revenue, man. That's a game-changing project. And for us to be able to work on that project where every line actually matters to the performa, to the culture. How do they actually get employees there working and enjoying that space? Man, those projects make me feel alive. And that's what matters, right? And we do well, right? We're still open 3 years later, but those are the projects, man, that have made me feel so alive, that impact others.
Yeah, I've seen some of those projects on Instagram, and check out Form Function Studio on Instagram. The link to that'll be in the notes to the video. But along those lines, one of the projects that I've seen, it was probably from the earlier portion of Form Function's history, is that you worked with a restaurant. If we could go there for a little bit, I think that what you did there, if I understand it from a spectator's point of view correctly, is really fascinating to me. So let's spend some time on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I believe you're talking about Giannis, and Giannis was actually our first project, and it was actually while I was at OPN still. So I was technically moonlighting, and so to work around that moral compass type of thing that we've talked about. One of the reasons why I kept working on that project was I'm a part owner of it. And so very small owner. So Adam, my business partner, he's the main driver. He's the kingpin, as you say. He had the idea, he has the know-all and wherewithal to make an amazing Italian beef. So if you're ever in Cedar Rapids, you got to go try Gianna's. Phenomenal food. But we met, man, we had a mutual friend that connected us. We actually we're going to the same church. And he brings up this project, and Gianna was his daughter that passed away when she was 4. She had a terrible accident happen to her. Entertainment system fell on her. It was awful. And I wasn't around for that. Yeah, awful. And I don't ever want to experience, and you as an expecting dad, man, that's that's something that's probably hitting you hard right now, and me hopefully to be a dad in the next few years. That was tough. And so this project, Adam, his family is like a restaurant family in Iowa, which I had no idea about because I'm not from here. But they had a phenomenal Greek restaurant. His uncle was one of the lead chefs for Hy-Vee Grocery, which is a massive grocery company in Iowa. All these things that are just, if a Hadgis isn't in the kitchen, there's something wrong in the world type of thing. So Adam, starting this concept, and we talk about the, project, and we interview together, and it ends up working out really, really well. And we're going through the design process, and we're talking through some financials and some budgeting and stuff. And I'm like, hey, dude, if you're looking for a partner, I'd love to be a part of it. It'd be awesome. And so, yeah, that'd be awesome. And kind of talk through how do we figure this out. And a little secret, as you know, on the construction loan, there's a little line that says architect's fee. Well, architect, sweat equity.
Yep.
And there's ways to do it really, really well and still get paid a little bit through a construction loan. And we could spend a whole nother episode on diving through those numbers, whiteboarding, all that kind of cool stuff. But to the architects that will be listening to this, you have a talent that a lot of people do not have across this entire country that is actually worth exponentially more than just your fee that you can use to your advantage. And so what we developed was this idea that, hey, we're going to take this chunk of money and we'll put it back into sweat equity as a down payment. So it lowers the downstroke. I become a partial owner. I ended up putting in some financial, which was my choice. And it's worked out really well. So we're in year 3. We're about to celebrate year 4 in October, which is really exciting. Restaurant industry, like 60-something% of restaurants fail in the first year, gets down to right below 60 in the second year. You're at 50% after year 3. And then as soon as you get to year 4, man, it like drops to like 30 or 40%, which is still stupid high. But as soon as you get past year 5, that loan is typically gone. And that's a massive nut that you don't have to cover anymore. that you can start covering other costs and start looking at growth again.
Yeah, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on that because it's maybe even though it's not the way you exactly described your business arrangement, but it's an opportunity there for folks to remember that the barter economy is alive and well. And essentially, this could have been a situation where you provided your services in exchange for a percentage ownership in this company, where somebody's trying to bootstrap a restaurant or whatever business type it is. Just to be able to provide a service and maybe not get paid for it day one, but as an equity owner in a business, there is a residual benefit to that. And so it's a neat way to think about the value you can bring above and beyond dollars and cents in a community, because ultimately you're creating jobs in Cedar Rapids, right? People work
Absolutely.
for Giannis, right?
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point. It's the impact on the community too. So that corner that we're on 3rd Street and 4th Avenue, I think 3rd or 4th. I should know this, but the streets get me all mixed up. That corner was sitting vacant, and now there's some life to it. And I think what's cool is, yeah, you have to have money to make money, but like you said, the barter economy is very well, where you can start to trade services and build equity and build percentage ownerships. And if you get bought out from that, now you have cash where you can go reinvest it. It just takes a little bit more time and a little bit more creativity, but it is an opportunity to make a wave, because I didn't know anybody in Cedar Rapids, and no one. And so how do you make this wave? And it's literally the ability to raise your hand and say, hey, I believe in this. I want to go help. And we actually do this quite a bit. We have these conversations quite a bit on now. They're bigger projects, and looking to dip our toes into the bad word of development, but how do you start to create architecture still, and then have a future that's reciprocal income, just this passive income that's starting to cover 10 or 20 or 30% of your overhead. So now I can spend that 10 or 20, 30% of my overhead on pro bono work.
There you go. Yeah, so we're talking about things here that I think you and I both find really interesting and have a little bit of passion about, is the fact that architectural training does not include business training, right, wrong, or indifferent. And so along the way, you had to pick up all of those skills. And so if we can, let's fast forward a little bit. Form function looks a lot different now than it did on day one. As best I understand it, you have employees, you have a staff, you are doing more projects, bigger projects, and ultimately the responsibility for that sits on your shoulders day in, day out, to make sure you basically got the livelihood of people that you're employing. It all rolls up to you at the end of the day. And so can we talk a little bit about that, and how you're balancing making sure that that your clients are happy with the fact that you need to make sure that your employees are happy?
Yeah. So the one of the most interesting things I've learned in my C2O group is your best asset is not your clients, but your employees. And that's one of the best things I've learned, and I've tried to retain in the 3+ years that we've been a part of C12, and we've been running form function. I say we because it is a we. Even to the legalities of the government, we're an S corp. While I am a sole proprietor, I actually collect a paycheck now from form function. So that's pretty interesting, and actually really stinking cool, because I'm back to being an employee instead of just collecting the residual, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, we're a team of 4. We're really looking to grow. We're looking to add that 5th here in the next 5 to 6 weeks. And we're having conversations with a gentleman, and he's going to be a great fit. We're just kind of waiting for some projects to start, which is always an interesting thing. It's hard though. So we all have a really key part into how we run our firm. So we've set up this organization where I'm considered the vision and design director. So if anyone's read Rocket Fuel and Traction, we're an EOS model company and we're working on implementing that. And it's been a really fruitful thing for us. But what's happened is I'm not able to do my job well as the vision and design director because I don't have other people in the lanes that I need to be filling in terms of documentation and drawing and project management. And I have to do that, which is fun and great. But now I can't go be the vision and design director and design the vision and go direct the vision and go gain projects. And so that's been really, really hard to do while also managing a culture.
Yeah, and you're doing all those things at a time in history where I don't know that in our lifetimes the war on talent and the war on employees has ever been more challenging. And so maybe you can speak to that a little bit. How do you make sure your people are happy and ultimately keep them off of the job boards?
Yeah. So that's been a great thing, man. Again, so OPN, Shive Hattery, Newman Munson, Aspect Architects. I'm probably forgetting another couple others, but there's some really big firms in Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, where University of Iowa is 30 minutes away, HDR. I have to compete against those people for talent. And so when we're looking at job boards right now and you're looking at offers, they're probably making, someone out of school is probably making 10 to 15K more than what I made outside of school when I had 3 years experience 7 years ago. That's a lot. They're asking for 55, 60,000. And on top of that, they're getting $7,000 signing bonuses. And then they're also getting the 401k. They're also getting a phenomenal healthcare package, all these things, moving expenses, which is awesome. I'm super happy for them. But you asked, how do we compete? We can't, right? So this is how we do it. We go to the community colleges. We look at the technical drawing people. We look at the interior designer associates, and we start to ask them, and we start to talk with them and have a culture with them. So my first hire, Kelsey, she just celebrated her 1 year, like a week and a half ago. To the normal eye, she's a designer. She has an interior design background. She works on designing these homes with us. She works on designing these commercial projects. She's a guru with casework and custom millwork, phenomenal at that stuff. She's got a 2-year degree. And I said, who cares an S, right? Who cares, right? She works hard. She cares about design. She cares about the community she lives in. I can teach her. We can figure this out, right? And there were bumps, man. But I started going, and I don't think this is my idea. I think it was more like a C12 thing or a prayer thing of go where no one is. Start recruiting those people, right? You don't have to go to the Iowa States and go get the top-notch talent that you want. Maybe you'll get them in a few years, or to Nebraska or back to Ball State. You don't have to go there. You can go where someone maybe couldn't afford to go to the 4-year, but really wants to be an architect, right? Or maybe they didn't have the opportunity to go to a 4-year, or maybe they could only just do the 2-year, but they really want to do this. And I was like, sure, let's try it. And it's worked out for the most part, right? It didn't work out with one, and that's okay. She was an awesome person and she's doing her thing. And the other thing that we're doing is, because of volleyball, which has been awesome, I'm like giving the Kool-Aid early to these kids about how awesome architecture and design is.
Fantastic.
So we have an intern right now, Avery. Her sister played volleyball, but Avery did a shadow day when I was at OPN, and I led that shadow day because I was the one coaching volleyball in high school, and I could connect with these high school kids. So I was always doing the shadow days for the high school kids that did the internship at OPN. So I was able to have a relationship with Avery early enough when she started college, and she goes to a local college. And now she's working 10 to 15 hours a week. She self-taught her, the software, because they don't have an architecture program at the college she goes to. Mm-hmm. We're having conversations of like, hey, if you want to become an architect, these are the routes that you can take. So she's looking at doing an online thing or going to Iowa State for the 2 year, but coming back and working with us. So the Kool-Aid is, getting them on early. And then the other one, the third one is this one is absolutely key, is build the culture that you never had. So what did I want or desire out of a firm that I wasn't getting? And at 110, I really loved the experience, but I didn't make a ton of money. At OPN, I worked my tail off, but was I really feeling the values of it? But I was getting paid well. And so at Form Function, we're really focused on personal and professional development and leaning in on how key of a piece you are to the puzzle. So we have 4 people, and the other person is our CFO and our integrator, and that's my mom. So it's really kind of this weird dynamic, but it's amazing because it's the person I've trusted for the past 32 years of my life. We really focus on culture and development. So we do a weekly goal sheet every week. And we talk about kind of these big rocks that we're focusing on individually for our studio for the next 90 days. So Linda, Avery, Kelsey, myself, we all have rocks that we're accountable for. And then we have these daily habits that we're working through. And that's been super fruitful. But to put our money where our mouth is, man. So we have an agreement for our employees to work 40 to 45 hours a week. And I think it's like 45 because we include the hour break. And of those hours, 20% of them have to go towards personal and professional development for the studio.
Reminds me of the Google model, where you spend some time working on whatever you want to
for the studio. Right. And so I didn't know where this was going to go when we started implementing this. Our profit margins went from like 15% to 27% in the next 90 days. Our efficiency went from, our utilization rate was like at 85 and it dropped down to like 72, which screams the other way, right? But we started creating processes and systems, and others started asking questions on how we could actually run our software better or how we could actually manage our projects better that have a better skill set in that than I did. And it started working. And we started creating an accountability of, hey, you only have 30 something hours now to get work done.
Yep.
So how are you actually going to get it done? And then you can actually go grow. And I think that's really important for our firm as we continue to grow. Is it's not like, hey, man, I really want you to personally grow and professionally grow. I think that's really important as a firm. I think every company says that. We require it. It's an expectation. And it's honestly, we're a faith-based firm. So it's almost biblical to a sense of, I'm going to be better in excellence today more than I was yesterday. And tomorrow I'm called to do that as well. And I think that's been the biggest driver for our firm for the past year and a half now that we've done it.
I can dig it, man. Iron sharpens iron as one person sharpens another.
Absolutely.
So I'm really feeling that. And I think that's really neat. And so maybe to put a little bit of a bow on this, what you're doing is really awesome. And it is unique, but dare I call it replicable. And what I mean by that is if you were to be able to take everything you've learned in the past 7 years and to throw it into your mind for a minute, there's a 25-year-old that wants to go start his own firm, somebody not all that different from you. What's the most important piece of advice that you could distill down to get somebody off the ground and started?
If there's a 25-year-old listening and they want to go start their own company, like it doesn't even have to be in architecture, I would do 3 things. I'd still continue to cut my teeth in an industry, right? So I'd still continue to keep that job until I was able to gain clients or enough work where it could float me or keep me hungry, right? But to just cut and then throw up a Hail Mary prayer, I don't think that would be something I would ever suggest doing. So that's probably the one thing. The second thing is get involved in things that you're passionate about outside of your industry. So you can learn from experts and mentors that aren't in your industry. And I think that's been really important for me to learn. Is I've learned some of my best business decision making and KPIs to look for, and how to win clients and how to actually gain clients outside of my industry. Because if I just continue to talk to architects, man, I wouldn't gain a single client ever. Right. So if you're an amazing chef, why are you talking to other chefs? Go talk to other people and offer your service. Right. And so then the third is, if you don't start taking steps before you make the jump, you're never going to do it. So you can start taking steps, right? So cutting your teeth, making sure you can have some clients. But at some point when you do make that jump, be prepared for not knowing what the heck you're doing for a long time, and knowing that the more you actually put in, and I truly mean this, and especially in the culture that we are in right now, where it's like, I want to work less and get paid more. The more you put in, the more you will receive. I promise you that. So those 12, 14-hour days, you will reap the benefit of those days, but you have to put them in. You're not going to create a company working 6 hours a day. I promise.
It's real talk, and that's good stuff, man. And so I appreciate our time today. It's been a lot of fun. But before we wrap up, I've got a handful of rapid fire questions for you, known as the how-to cues. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready, man. Shoot them.
Awesome. Number one, what is the best book you've read in the last 12 months?
Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Yes,
It's
read that
awesome.
one.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I've read it 3 times. It's absolutely key right now.
I agree completely. Number two, what is one podcast that you subscribe to?
How I Built This.
Yeah, Guy Raz, right?
Yeah. And then I just started listening to Planet Money. My fiance showed me that one. She listens to it all the time. That one's a good one because it's like 20-minute clips. They're easy.
Yeah, Planet Money is fun too. I've covered a couple of things on their world as well. So always a fan of the NPR folks over at Planet Money. If you're listening, feel free to have me on, guys. What is one app on your phone that you could not live without?
So there's a couple. So the first one is the, again, preachy, but the Bible app, right? Mm-hmm. So I journal every day for an hour every day. That's the first thing I do when I wake up. So the Bible app is amazing. And then the other one is, and I just started this year, it's called 1 second a day. So I take a 1 second video every day, and I started on January 1st, and it compiles throughout the entire year. So my fiance, Haley, she did one last year, and it's cool, man. You talk about like that FOMO feeling of, gosh, I really didn't do that much this year. This, like, we got to start doing some more stuff. And then you watch this like 6.5 minute video. It's like, we did a crap ton. Like, our life is really freaking blessed. Like, this is sweet. And so it's just a cool perspective of really slowing down the day and then just taking a random 1 second video. So typically my Fridays are, I'm getting ice cream with the crew. I'm taking a video of just saying happy Friday with my little ice cream cup. So that's a great app. I highly suggest.
What's that called again?
It's the 1 second a day app.
1 second a day.
Yeah. 1SE is the app title.
Okay.
It's awesome. I absolutely love it.
All right. So for my next question, you cannot say ice cream. What's something that you've spent $100 or less on that has brought value in your life? Okay.
So these pens are called Permanent Writer. I just bought them like 4 days ago from it's called Scribe Stationeer, new shop in Nubo, where I have our office, by Penco. They're expensive permanent pens, but they really freaking write well. And then the other one was this journal, leather-bound journal. This is my 5th one. Jenny Blick, they're in Washington, D.C. freaking awesome. It's like $50, writes well. But to get your thoughts down, man, and to get away from like, yeah, screens are awesome, technology's awesome because I haven't seen you in a couple of years, but a pen and a piece of paper, literally.
And
I
for
think I
the
spent like $60 on all of that together, which is incredibly sad. But when I could go to get a Bic at Walmart and a loose leaf paper for $2.
Yeah, for the folks who didn't grow up in the architectural world, architects are widely known to be snobs about their writing utensils, and I'm kind of proud of you for using that as your example, because you're solidifying the truth there. So thank you for doing it.
I hope you haven't fallen away from using good pens, man.
I mean,
oh man, what company name is on that?
Yeah, Form Function Studio. You can find them on Instagram.
Yeah, we'd be going broke if we gave out pens.
So the final question is, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so formfunctionstudio.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're starting to redo our website. We're not good at marketing. We're terrible at it. So we're starting to share more about our projects. That's where you can find us. Email paul@formfunctionstudio.com. If you have any questions about entrepreneurship, running a business, we'll gladly design your next project too. We love doing that. But those two emails, that website.
There we are, folks. Fantastic. Paul, again, this has been a pleasure. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Anthony, man. It was awesome.
That's going to bring this episode to a close. I know we went long on this one, but thanks again to Paul. It was a lot of fun, and I just couldn't help myself wanting to hear more of his story. So I'll keep this short. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share to get the podcast. You can check out the podcast player of your choice. And as always, if you have a house to sell in the Indianapolis market, get in touch with me in the comments or at indiedwell.com. Until next time, this is Anthony Drew Gary, host of The How To Show, signing off.